Tune with time has a man downfield, caught at the 5, and Tank Dell princes into the end zone untouched.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Third and short, tempo, didn't fool him. Brazil just muscled through a blocker and grabbed McIntosh. And that time, they were ready for the fast pace. And it's 4th down.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Dogs are back on offense, and Bennett finds a wide open Darnell Washington. Look at Darnell Washington roll down the sideline.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
3rd and 9. Mordecai, empty backfield, throwing, has his receiver, Rashid Rice, touchdown, SMU. A 19-yard connection, just burning the corner. Rashid Rice, you can't guard that man.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Charbonnet, the setback.
He keeps it. DTR. Touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, good afternoon. It's 365 Sports as we head into the weekend. Hope you've had a really good day. Hope you've had a good week. Hope you have a really good weekend ahead of you as well. We've got a couple of NIL stories. We could have gotten into them yesterday, but we had a lot of guests scheduled, so we'll do one a little bit here on Florida, the state of Florida, where Gators and Seminoles agree on something, and also that 12th man fund that A&M has, and what they're doing to what appears to be push that NIL envelope even further. And apparently, based on what it's and how it's written, they are just fine. So we'll have a couple of reporters. One reporter who covers A&M, Travis Brown, will join us at 4:15 on that. Also today, Kendall Kaut, Baylor men's basketball writer and columnist. He'll join us at 5. Baylor in Kansas tomorrow. Game day is there, 3 o'clock in Lawrence, Kansas, for at least part of the lead and could be the outright lead in the Big 12, although you would think Texas this weekend with Oklahoma should go to 10-4 in conference play. Also today, well, we have a few other things to get to, including Grayson Grundhafer. He'll join us at 3:45 as he always does. And C.J. Moore from theathletic.com wrote a fantastic article about Adam Flagler and why he came back this year based on wanting to be the point guard at Baylor, not demanding that, but saying, this is what I want to be, and then went to the staff and said, you've got to give me this opportunity, because there have been questions about, do they have a true point guard, and some of the stories behind that. Adam Flagler's story, C.J. Moore at 3:30. But today, Tiger Woods, I just have to. I'm not in a good mood. He's on the edge of missing the cut right now, under the cut line, or actually over the cut line, because he bogeyed his 18th hole today. And I'm sorry. My standards for him are extremely high. You're soft on him now. You're a Red Sox fan that says you don't want to just make the playoffs so the Cowboys can't make. But he kind of struggled a little bit today, and they kind of had an idea after a pretty brilliant finish to yesterday's round. So there's a good chance he does not play for the weekend, which bothers me.
Here's the difference between you and me, is that the Red Sox were not collectively in a car crash that almost left them unable to walk. So I'm just happy that he's out there playing, and we'll see what happens. Plus, this isn't a major. This doesn't ring as much as, if he was doing this at the Masters, it'd be really kind of upsetting. But yeah, this is the first one really back, and he can barely walk really anyway, especially based on his previous standards. So
he looked fine today.
You don't know how much pain he's in.
No,
and
I don't.
Just gutting it out.
I just know this is that the cut line is even. He ended up at 1 over, and a great group with McIlroy and also with Justin Thomas. So I wanted to start with that. I'm a little grumpy about it, and I love Tiger Woods and I love watching him play. I would never have been watching that tournament, Genesis. It's his tournament. He's the host. Never. Beautiful course. I would have not watched it probably until maybe Sunday afternoon had it not been for him in the tournament. So I know Paxton and some other fans are back and forth on that. So also baseball. We have a couple of big screens here in the studio. Actually, there's two of them, and there's one that can go into like 8 different screens like you have at a sports bar. College baseball. And one of the screens, Texas Tech is leading Gonzaga 6-4. Tech, obviously, very good. Top 25. Baylor's first pitch right now just started at home against Central Michigan in a 3-game series that starts today about a mile from here at Baylor Ballpark. So it's Mitch Thompson era has begun. All right, Craig and Paul. State of Florida updated its NIL legislation. This was yesterday, pulling back on restrictions, allowing universities, pulling back on restrictions while allowing universities to provide additional entrepreneurial workshops to their players.
I think this was inevitable, and at least, and most state laws leave a lot of things out, or were, especially with NIL, kind of cookie cutter, or we can't have this, where they were seemingly worried about making the NCAA happy. And I just think that, part of the thing the NCAA has to do when it comes to making new rules and the new governance is cut the crap when it comes to, well, we're going to allow this, but we're going to put this little thin veil between that no one can go through, as if they can't. And you can call this the Jaden Rashada law right here, because what happened, and yes, Billy Napier and Mike Norvell were both standing up on stage together. But make no mistake, the reason this changed is because there are big money donors at the University of Florida, which is the biggest university and has the most money in that state by far, that were pissed off about how that went down. And then we're kind of reasonably going, well, why isn't the coach or the university or the athletic department able to help facilitate these things? Because Billy Napier has to sit there looking like a jackass because he didn't really know. He knew, broad strokes of these things, but he's not really allowed to know about or talk about or engage in all this stuff. So why not just look, if we're not going to have rules that are reasonably enforceable, tear down the wall, let the university try and regulate it or funnel the right people in, and then it's a little bit cleaner. It's still not going to be perfect, but this is better than pretending there's a rule.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's more opening it up for, whatever they want to happen, basically. I mean, now the schools are more directly involved, whereas they weren't supposed to be before. I don't buy for a second that they weren't. I don't buy for a second that they were all just like, no, I'm sorry, we're hands off. You have to deal with this organization. I think that they were, at the very bare minimum, all behind the scenes, pulling strings with whatever organizations were helping them to land players ultimately. I just don't believe for a second in an industry where everybody looks for every competitive advantage imaginable that there weren't people trying to find their way around or finding their way around. And now there's less room to have to find your way around because they got their way. And now the schools can be more involved and help facilitate these deals. And we can stop pretending in the state of Florida like that wasn't already going on anyway. So it's just like, why are there even any rules at this point?
Well, that's a good point.
Seriously, like, why are there even any rules? And if you're one of those states, it's like hardcore about this, which I don't even know what that would
Georgia
mean.
is apparently.
That won't last much longer. I mean, because again, what is the point? Nobody's balking at these rules. They're all finding ways around it anyways. All the schools who would typically find an advantage have already found one. All the schools that can exploit it, however they best can, are already finding ways to do that. And I just think a lot of this enforcement is super flimsy at best. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that Florida, looking around the rest of the country, decided or had some conversations with politicians and whatever they had to do to make today happen to go ahead and act and make sure that they didn't get left behind because they were trying to be too stringent on what is allowed. So, now you see comments from Billy Napier and Mike Norvell of like, this is long overdue. And, they're super excited, as I'm sure they should be, because there's less, in their way. Not in their way, even though it very much is their way. Now, whatever hurdles there might have been before, a few of those have been knocked down, and it's just a lot more free and clear to go and get your NIL money flowing to these players that you want on your campuses. So a win for the players, a win for the schools, and just more I don't know, it's egg on the face. I don't know about that, but just more of, this question in my mind of like, what's the point of any of these NIL rules at this stage? Because it doesn't seem like anything really gets enforced or will be enforced, and nor should, most people want them to be. I think there's a lot of people, at least maybe not most, but a lot of people who feel like that should be the way that it is, that schools should be able to help facilitate some of these deals. So if you're in that camp, today was a win for you, and we'll see how it benefits the Gators and the Noles and the Hurricanes and everyone else. UCF, obviously, this is news for them too. We'll see how it benefits them all in the future, and what this might mean for a Georgia or another state that maybe is still a little bit tighter than others, who looks around and suddenly realizes, hey, we're one of the only ones that still has rules at this point. Why? Why are we hurting ourselves? And a big step forward for the state of Florida.
All right, so Paul, Florida and Florida State are involved in that. Of course, both of them, as you mentioned, with both Napier and Mike Norvell on stage with Governor DeSantis on the House Bill 7B. And then there's, of course, the story yesterday, and Travis Brown will join us today from the Bryan College Station Eagle, covers Texas A&M, that the 12th Man Foundation, they have yet another part or a new NIL. And the first response I saw from a lot of people, I even had those at A&M like, man, that's putting it right on that football game where you had the paper football and you have to get it right over the edge of the ledge where it falls off. That some were like, oh my goodness, how can they do that? Well, Travis Brown's going to join us today at around 4:15 to discuss this further. What's the difference here in what A&M has been doing and what A&M is attempting or will do?
Okay, the 12th Man Foundation started what's called the 12th Man Plus Fund. And what the 12th Man Plus Fund does that is different, so usually NIL collectives, because they can't really be involved directly with the university, will have the students, like, for example, Texas and their offensive linemen thing, they're getting $50,000 a year, and in exchange for that, they will help promote charitable causes to whatever extent that happens, but they will promote charitable causes, and, that's how they justify having this NIL contract. What A&M is doing is, instead of, Habitat for Humanity or something, 12th Man Plus Fund will have students generally just helping raise money for the athletic department. Mm-hmm. So it's all kind of cyclical. So if you're going to
Baylor, for example, everyone has one of these. Baylor has the Bear Foundation. The more you donate, the more bells and whistles you get. Could be travel packages or better seats or tickets or whatever, access.
So you could have a meet and greet session with players on the team. Say you get an Nia Smith or Connor Wigman or Evan Stewart or Moose Muhammad, and probably all four of them. You have those four guys at an event, and they're going to do this event, and the point of the event is they're going to get a little bit of money. Well, probably a lot of bit of money, and the school's going to get a lot of bit of money. So that way, it's the same thing, because donations to a university are charitable donations, but it's going directly to Texas A&M. So now you don't have to wonder, like, you can kind of kill two birds with one stone. If you're going to give money to NIL, you're now helping the university and the players. Now, this is right up against the wall of the current NCAA rules.
Really?
Right up, over the line.
Is there a wall?
Yeah, but of what the rules are written down. Again, they are just betting that it's not really all that enforceable. And I am betting that mostly because Texas and Florida, when it comes to things like this, are in a race to see who can match the other one. Their governors seem to like to one-up each other or match them. I don't think this will be long before in Texas they're going to be like, no, they can do this. Same, like, let's take out, search and replace the Florida, the word Florida in the law and put Texas in it, and that'll be done.
I mean, yeah, basically this is the absolute closest you could possibly be to the NIL being related to the school and the players. I mean, it's supposed to not be close together. It's supposed to be separated, and this is like as close as you can possibly be without officially being all together. So they found a way to go right up against the invisible wall of rules, like they're smushed up against it as best they can, and bending it to where it probably can't bend much more without just blatantly being against the rules. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
I mean, this is as far as you can take it and keep it, quote unquote, legal in the current landscape of rules. So raise your hand if you're surprised A&M was the one to do this.
No.
I mean, not me. They've been very much on the forefront of a lot of these, extra added benefits or possibilities or opportunities over the last few years. I'm fascinated in knowing, like, 20 years when all, these next couple of decades have passed, and Oklahoma and Texas will have been in the SEC for a couple of decades, and A&M will have been in there for like 3 decades at that point. And we know they've spent gobs and gobs and gobs of money. And they're by far not the only one. Like the 2 schools I just mentioned spend gobs of money as well. But A&M, I mean, they've really put the full court press, right, in a lot of different ways, or tried to be like the first to the table, or tried to be unique in some ways to get over that mountain that has been, winning that elusive championship, whether that be an SEC or a national championship. And I mean, they are not sparing any expense, I think it's fair to say, and haven't been for quite some time. And they're only going to be making more and more money as they go along. And now there's this NIL era where there's basically now there's no rules. I mean, barely there's any rules. Will this ever pay off for them is what I wonder, because it hasn't so far, to the extent that they would like it to. Not that they haven't had any success or anything. But, I mean, you talk about school trying to do everything it possibly can. Within, like, I'm not saying they're, it's all within the rules, but doing every single thing they possibly can, whether it was, back when someone was bringing out the swag copter, everything that's somewhat new, they are seemingly on the cutting edge or front of and trying to maximize that and utilize that as best they can. And I just will be fascinated, like I said, to see, not just for them necessarily, but they're a very interesting case because of where they kind of are in the pecking order and kind of how they're viewed, and the fact that they're very much going to be affected by the moves that take place here in the next year with 2 of their former, one of them more of a rival than the other, but 2 teams they didn't want to be with anymore. Now with them in this great SEC landscape, I think when you write the book on this era of college football, it will be mightily interesting to see where A&M is in that conversation and what their efforts ultimately led to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because they're one of the more unique, I think, cases of all of these. Yeah. And Miami will be too at some point, and then there will be others. But A&M, I mean, they really all along have been trying to find that extra little thing that they can do or be the best at that puts them over this mountaintop. And they are so close, it feels like, but there's just a step they haven't been able to go just yet. So I'm fascinated by that.
And maybe with what they've been able to do, in some cases guys leaving, in some cases because they probably didn't want them back, and some that are disenchanted, or some that were promised whatever. And it doesn't have to be just money and NIL. It could be just promises of playing time. Maybe they'll settle into who they are. But, yeah, you're right. They've got 2 teams coming in that are, 2 programs. Now, they were good in the COVID year, but that's gone. But, yeah, it's time for them to be able to post back-to-back-to-back type years, you would think, in a conference which is hard to do that, and now getting tougher in 2024.
They are historically, if you look at everything, if you look at that university as a whole over the last, say 45 years or so, once they went co-ed and they got bigger, and the university's done nothing but grow, right? If you look at the university side, and I'm sure there are some things that people could point out to me that they're not great at, but everything has grown exponentially, and they've kind of dominated a lot of things. And the university just grows and grows and grows. It's enormous. It's a behemoth. They used to not, like, the reason that Texas used to be able to tell A&M what to do is that A&M was an all-male military school, and Texas was way, way bigger. That is not even close to the case now. They're very much on equal footing when it comes to university size and money and grants and everything that comes in. Where A&M is such a conundrum is, if you look at the rest of their athletic department, they've won national championships in every sport except for baseball, men's basketball, and the one that they would literally blow up the rest of the state to do if they could is football. And they've never been able to figure it out. They've come on the door of, like, taking that step to where they could perennially be a contender, and then somehow, some way, they trip over their own feet, and they're back to who they always were. Between 3 different conferences, between coaches, facilities, money, NIL, they are still who they've always been when it comes to football, and it is weird.
Yeah, it is. It really, it's a great way to put it. It is, and it no matter what, God bless them for trying, but also sometimes almost to the point where they try so hard that something's missing. And we'll see what happens as they move into this year without so many expectations, or so much the expectations were last year entering the year. Fair. They were absolutely fair. The problem I always had before last year, we'll get on to some other things as well, I always wondered who the hell's going to help him at quarterback. And I love, Haynes King. But I always wondered, are they that good where they can just have a bus driver at quarterback or someone who's okay? Like LSU was able to win a couple of national titles with, what was it, Mock and Matt Flynn.
Yeah, well, that was 20 years ago.
No,
I understand what you mean, but that's a different era now.
I know.
I think you got to have a quarterback at this point. And I know, like, some old Stetson Bennett wasn't the greatest. He had I understand that to an extent. You can have a bus driver, but I do think you have to have a guy that can play at QB. You can't just have some average Joe and expect to compete for the biggest of titles. So that was a problem for them. Their culture was a bit of a problem as well. Probably might have something to do with the fact that they're like, here's everything you ever imagined. Come to College Station. And that kind of can create a little bit of entitlement. And that can maybe bring some bad apples into the bunch. And they've had to clean up some of that. And I think that's part of the recorrecting of what they were doing and how they were doing it, and probably realizing, okay, like, we learned a lesson there. We have to be better about this. But nobody invests more, spends more, wants it more than them. And it's only seemingly going to get harder, but they keep finding ways to try and get that advantage, whether it's a fundraising or whether it's this or that. And now it's this 12th man plus whatever it's going to be. And others will follow suit. And it'll just be interesting to see if, ultimately all these efforts and all this passion can take them to a place that they haven't been. And they're not on a timetable. I mean, Jimbo might be on a little bit of time, but even that is an example, like the massive buyout that he has that hangs like an albatross around their neck. How does that experiment go ultimately? Because it's, any lack of success won't be for a lack of trying. That's for dadgum sure.
All right. Remember yesterday we had a guest on McConnell about Notre Dame and the fact that they really kind of, they were out of breath trying to find an offensive coordinator. They ended up absolutely finding one who was on staff after Ludwig at Utah eventually said no, or they didn't want to do the buyout, or both. So this is something. Michael Campbell, who watches our show, is a huge Notre Dame fan. He said I could share this with you. And let's read this. The absolute tone, this is from Douglas S. Sant, a Notre Dame fan. The absolute tone deafness of your response to the fan base's anger, this was in reaction to not being able to handle the buyout, or they didn't want to. And then, of course, Swarbrick said, hey, we have a donation link, whatever, is an absolute joke. You didn't even address the issues except to put a little savvy spin on it. Then you had the audacity to ask for donations. Seriously, that's one of the most arrogant things I've seen. I cannot emphasize enough how embarrassing you are to not only Our Lady, but yourself. You need to retire. You have done nothing but hold this program down. Go Irish. All right, I'm going to respond. You guys all, relax. Now, Michael Campbell said Notre Dame fan base is done with Swarbrick. Relax a little bit. We got another story today when I think people need to take a deep breath and relax. Should he have done the donations thing? I don't know. Was it flippant? Yes. Was it serious? Maybe. He was, I think, joking because he took so much heat. You guys can agree or disagree with me.
No, I just for my own clarity, who's this from and who's this directed
it's
to?
It's a fan directed to the Notre Dame athletic director for
what I thought,
when he said, "Hey, I know,"
like a comment.
And he put up a couple of links. Yeah, I was given permission to use it. It was an email to Swarbrick.
It can be kind of confusing if you don't know exactly what we're talking about.
I was saying that at the beginning.
Who
I
we
tried
talked to.
Explain it at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to clarify a little further because there's a lot of names that maybe everybody doesn't follow that story closely, knows who all these people are. But that's kind of the gist that we got, right? And talking to our guy yesterday was that they're not happy, and that, I even brought up the whole the fact that Swarbrick said what he said and then said, like, here's the donation link without even providing an explanation. So, yeah, I'd imagine there are people that are pissed about that. And when you see that they go through all that effort and you have a guy who's at the basketball game being paraded or at least being, visible, and that guy doesn't get the job, which – would typically never happen. You at least wouldn't know a person was there if they didn't think they had a shot at it in most of these hirings. And if they're out in public, then there's probably a pretty good chance they're going to be the guy ultimately. So for that to not be the case and for the rumor to be that it's over money, knowing how much money that they have, yeah, that's going to tick fans off. And then you tell them, no, it's not money, but I'm not going to tell you what it really is, but give us your money. Yeah, screw you, Jack Swarbrick. Like, if I was a Notre Dame fan, I'd be pissed too. Like, the least you could do is just give me you don't have to make it public. You don't have to hold a press conference, but just tell us donors who are trying to pony up for this OC, like, what the problem is and why we didn't get who we apparently wanted to get. That's more than a fair request if I'm a money person for the Irish.
Roger Dodger said it was talking down to the Notre Dame fans. The donation request shows he's disconnected.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that was a bad choice on Swarbrick's part. You could just say, look, it did not work out. Like we thought it was going to. It didn't work out. There are a lot of factors at play here. Yes, the buyout is one of them. And, you know, I mean, that's a bad look when you have that, you know, the $1 billion in your endowment fund. It doesn't seem to kind of be worried about buying a coach whose buyout's probably no more than $1.5 million. So a kind of a drop in the bucket to an ever-growing and expanding endowment at Notre Dame. Yeah, and look, Swarbrick is a very powerful individual in college athletics, as we talked about at length yesterday. But that's for the outside. That's for Notre Dame and being able to negotiate their TV deal and all the different things within college football. He's been good at that. It's clear that there's a disconnect with him and the little people, so to speak, in that, look, Notre Dame's competed for a lot in the last few years. I mean, they've competed for national championships. They've been in a college football playoff. But Notre Dame fans are built on the bedrock of, and they believe themselves to be the greatest football program that's ever football program. But it's been a very long time since they've actually hoisted the trophy.
1988.
Yeah.
Lou Holtz, Rice, the quarterback, Tony Rice.
Exactly.
And if they were pouring money into like NIL and things like that, the way A&M was, I'd lump them in that same category. But it'll be fascinating to see where they are in a couple of decades. Because you talk about a team that's been knocking on the door, and gets a lot of attention, and rightfully so. I mean, because of what they are historically, but has fallen short. I just don't think they have these same crazed expectations and that like starving. You just need a drop of water. You're so like no, like they don't have that to the level of what some programs like an A&M might have. Otherwise, I think they'd be very similar there. But, yeah, I do think that they kind of have to figure out in some ways there is clearly a disconnect between management and the fandom. And so where is Notre Dame as a player in this money world? Because they have it, but they also have a certain way of doing things. And, if that way that they've been doing it is what's preventing them from ultimately getting over their own little mountaintop, then yeah, there's going to be some pushback, and so you see some of it there.
Yeah, some other programs are looking at what others are doing, and they're like, Mac Rhodes has mentioned that at Baylor, they already are asking for a lot, and they don't have the massive, I guess you say, alumni base. They have donors. Don't get me wrong; they'll always have the money they need, but you wonder. And so Swarbrick took some heat for those comments when he mentioned here's a donation link, and probably was in bad taste. It didn't bother me much, but obviously it did some others. There's a little bit later on a story about Tiger Woods and Justin Thomas that we'll have about Tiger had to apologize today for something that, Paul, you sent me a text. I laughed my ass off, but, maybe I'm clueless. When we come back, C.J. Moore wrote a story about Adam Flagler, Baylor and Kansas tomorrow. Game will be on ESPN, and also game days in town. Adam Flagler featured by C.J. Moore, and he is next on 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com, when you need an MRI, and even if it's something that's been building up and you need, or your doctor finally says, okay, we need a better look at what's wrong with your back, what's wrong with your neck, what's wrong with something that might be a muscle or a ligament, or there is pain for sure. Enough to where you don't sleep. Have you ever had one of those issues where you sleep on one side of your body and then an hour and a half later you got to turn to the other side and you never get comfortable? There's something wrong. And you need to get a nice piece of evidence. That's what an MRI can do, and Ideal MRI can do that for you. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace, state-of-the-art technology MRI machine. And also, it's where you walk in the door and you're not going to sit there for 45 minutes to an hour or so waiting for 15 people in front of you, and it better not be that many. It's going to be 8 hours. You'll get in, you'll get out. The Texan specialists are fantastic. I have been there, and they are wonderful. They'll also charge you no more than $497 or less. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace. IdealMRI.com.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Every time I think C.J. Moore of The Athletic can't write another great article, which there's nothing wrong with writing a bunch of them because he has, but every time I'm like, okay, that's about as good as it can get, he does another one. And the one that came out, Baylor's Adam Flagler, and a deliberate decision paying off in a large way, I read it. Then I read it again. C.J. Moore from The Athletic joins us on 365 Sports on the eve of Baylor-Kansas tomorrow afternoon in Lawrence. And, CJ, last time we had you on, you said you were working on, like, multiple stories, whether it was Jonathan Chachua or whoever else, and this one was brilliant. What was the one thing you learned out of a lot of things that you learned about Flagler coming to Baylor or at Baylor that you perhaps, like, really stuck out to you the most?
Well, just sitting down with him and interviewing him, I was struck by his maturity, and I tweeted this out earlier. You know, I told him at the end, I was like, "You're like kind of wise beyond your years. It's like talking to an older guy, you know." And he said, "You know, I've kind of been like that way his whole life." And so I think that's one thing that really struck me. Like, I knew he was from being around the program a little bit, I knew he was a good guy, and but he's so thoughtful. And I think, my favorite part of the story is probably John Jacobs sitting in his living room and having a 5-hour in-home visit, which is pretty wild to think about it. One coach sitting down with a family for 5 hours and going through film and going through, their stories. And I thought that was pretty neat. And I think that connection is a big reason why he got to Baylor. And I think that connection is a big reason why he has succeeded. I think this coaching staff has found a way to connect with these young men. And, it was important with Davion and Jared and Maceo, and it's kind of continued with the next crop.
CJ, that string of guys you just mentioned were notoriously hard workers, and so much so that, particularly with Davion, they had to trick him to go home sometimes because he would just work and work and work. Adam Flagler's kind of continued in that tradition. What is it about their ability to find guys who they can identify early on that want to follow in that, like Flagler was with those other guys?
Sorry, I was trying to talk. You said how have they been able to find guys like that?
Yeah,
I think part of it is doing your research in the back in the front end and when you're looking for guys. But I also think you get a culture where when guys show up, they see how hard everybody else is working, and they just kind of fall in line. Like if Davion Mitchell is your best player, and he's working that hard. Like, who am I to not, try to match him? So I think these programs, once they get it rolling sometimes, it's just, it kind of feeds itself. And I think Adam always had that in him, but I'm sure, it didn't hurt that when he got to Baylor, he saw what it was like with everybody else. And Scott's done a really, really smart thing. And it's one thing I didn't hit in on this story, but John Jacobs mentioned it to me is, he's got a GA that works with him, and Scott hires a ton of GAs. I don't even know how many they have right now, but it makes it so that these guys always have somebody to rebound for them, to train them outside of practice. And I think that's one of their, the secret sauce, part of the secret sauce. And Jerome Tank's trying to do that at K-State. He has a similar model. He's trying to hire as many GAs as he can.
I tell you what, I thought it was funny. I cracked up on the story when Adam came to town for a recruiting visit, and he walks in. He's going to, they wanted to work him out a little bit, and all of a sudden there's Maceo Teague, Davion Mitchell, and Jared Butler lacing up the tennis shoes, right? And it's like, oh, really? And we've heard of those stories before about testing those who are coming in. I thought that was great. In the point guard part of it, CJ, I don't think there's any question. Last year there were questions about, do they have a true point guard? And this year, did they, was that going to be an Achilles? And at times they've kind of had to go through that. He wanted it, he got it, and it seems like it's starting to pay off.
Yeah, and I had kind of questions on what they were going to do in the off season, and every time I asked, I remember talking to the coaches during the off season, they always said it was going to be Adam. They kept their promise to him, and he's done a tremendous job, and I think grown in that position and really, really, improved as the years progressed.
What do you think about the balance between the three guards, especially the last couple of weeks when they've been red hot of, that none of them have been cold at the same time. They kind of seem to give and take from each other. Does that start with him?
Yeah, I think probably so. He is, nobody would fault him for wanting to take 15, 20 shots a game, right? Like he's probably earned that right. But I thought the West Virginia game was a great example where, he's coming off that TCU game where he was on one, right? And so you come out in the next game, you're probably wanting to get enough shots. He only shoots three shots in the first half. And I thought watching that game early on, like they looked about as bad as they could look, right? Like West Virginia's ball screen coverage, trapping the ball screens. They gave them a little trouble early on. But I thought like the second half of that game was some of the most beautiful basketball you're going to see. And the ball was really humming. And John gives them another element of that, of a guy who can dribble, pass, and shoot. And, when he's out there on the floor and he got 5 guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot, I think this offense is only going to get better because, when that thing's moving and you've got so many guys that are threats that's when you get really, really hard to guard. And that's always when I thought Davion and Jared and Maceo were at their best. Not when they were just necessarily attacking mismatches and doing isolation stuff. I thought when they were playing off each other and the ball was zinging around, that's when they got really, really dangerous. And I think you saw some of that against West Virginia. Hopefully they can keep that up because it's fun to watch.
They started doing that outside weave again. Not that they don't do other things, but I remember with Davion, Jared, and then even Maceo and then Flagler was a part of it. When they started running that, for a couple of years when they were not losing at all, man, it's almost like it's a cobra, like kind of like trying to hypnotize a cobra, isn't it?
Yeah. You're just worried when is it going to strike, and when you've got three guys that are that dangerous, and anyone can hit you at any time, that's really, really, really hard to guard. And there's a reason why they're the best offense in college basketball when you look at the analytics.
You mentioned Jacobs in that 5-hour meeting, and then, of course, you also in that article mentioned what Flagler wanted to be, a pediatrician, and now he wants to be a doctor, and what he's doing to follow people around who are in that profession. How much that story about what Jacobs told Adam about his son who has autism, and how much that struck Adam, and that conversation went to that more than it went to anything basketball?
Yeah, I just think it shows he's a thoughtful young man. And he was already an adult when Jacobs entered that room. His dad told me that he told the coaching staff that, hey, he's a really good basketball player, but wait till you meet him. And some parents are going to be a little biased, but I think that it was totally accurate. Like, not only they were getting a really good basketball player, but they were going to get a really good young man too.
Well, tomorrow it's Kansas. It's in Lawrence. Baylor pretty much controlled 90% of that game the last time around, but both teams have been playing better in stretches since then. How do you see this one shaking out tomorrow?
Man, I think it's going to be another great game. This is becoming such a fun matchup year in and year out. It seems like the first one, one team kind of has something figured out and kind of not necessarily tricks the other, but has an adjustment that maybe the other team didn't see coming. And then in the second game, the other team kind of figures it out and has something new for the team that won the first one. So I'm sure Bill Self's gonna come up with something tricky to throw at Baylor. And I wrote about this after they played last time, just the chess match of these two teams and the coaching staff going at each other. It'll be a fun one to watch, and that atmosphere in Allen, like you said, KU's playing better lately too, and Baylor's been tremendous. I think it's going to be one of the best atmospheres you're going to see in college basketball this year. That building will be rocking, I know.
Here's a note, not sure what it matters until they play tomorrow, but a lot of these teams at the top of the Big 12 have played and have winning records against the top 25, and even a lot of them, not a lot of games against the top 10, but for example, Iowa State's 4-1. They have more top 25 wins than anybody in the country. Baylor is 2-1 in the top 10. Texas 3-2, but Kansas has not lost to somebody inside the top 10. They're 4-0, and Baylor is a top 10 team. That game tomorrow afternoon in Lawrence. CJ, thank you very much. Are you putting together a piece on Jonathan? Is that coming around the corner?
I already did one on John.
Yeah, I didn't know if you're going to do an update on him now that he actually has played.
No, I mean, I wrote one right after he played his first game back.
Okay, I must have missed that one. Okay, good. All right.
Go find. There's a podcast up today too. I just tweeted it out a little bit ago.
All right.
Talking about the reporting of that story. So you get double the trouble there.
I will. I'll get it. Thank you, CJ. Appreciate your time. He is an absolute elite writer and has done many stories on the Big 12 and some of the great stories I've seen him write about not just Baylor, but the Big 12 and men's basketball. Tomorrow in the Big 12, Texas Tech at West Virginia, 11 o'clock on ESPNU. Iowa State at K-State. That game's a 1 o'clock tip doubleheader on ESPN. That's the first game. The second game would be Baylor and then Kansas at 3. Also at 1, there's 3 games going on at 1. Also, Oklahoma at Texas on the Big 12 ESPN Plus, and Oklahoma State at TCU, which will be a hell of a game, also on ESPN Plus. Something changes tomorrow because 2 of the teams tied at 9-4 play each other with Kansas and Baylor. Great matchups as we have 5 games left in the Big 12 regular season. All right, when we come back, Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com, recruiting analyst. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicalOT.com, Dr. Ken Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. As you grow older, Father Time takes over different parts of your body, inside and out. It happens. And sometimes what's on the inside, your testosterone levels can shrink. They can start to get lower, and that can affect you in many ways. Sex drive, sleep habits, focus, that. If any of that is in play with you right now, as maybe it wasn't 2 or 3 or 8 years ago, then Dr. Ken Petty can help you, or at least try to make sure what could be the problem or what isn't the problem. And it maybe not be your testosterone. PettyClinicalOT.com. Go online and contact them. Top left-hand corner, email and a phone number. They then, after you talk to their staff, his staff, they will set you up with blood work appointment. You go get your blood work. They get the lab results. Dr. Petty will look at them, and if your testosterone levels are low, he can put you in a program to increase them, and perhaps you won't be 1 out of every 3 men who have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. It's that simple. PettyClinicalOT.com.
Kick off 2023 with a bang at Allen Samuels in Waco. During the President's Day sales event, get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with total values up to $2,000 and 1.9% for 72 months on second and third row options. That's right, 1.9% for 72 months plus rebates. Or how about the 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with up to $3,500 in total values plus an extra $500 to first responders at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
This Richard Carr Motors Baylor Bear Hotline segment. Of course, Richard Carr Motors on the loop in Waco, sponsor of all the Baylor segments we have on 365 Sports, and joined by Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com recruiting analyst and coordinator. All right, Grayson, where is everything? What's on the radar right now when it comes to what coaches are looking at, who they're looking at, what can be done or what can't be done?
Right. So, I mean, I guess in the last a little over a week, I suppose, since we talked, they added another commit in Brock Jackson out of Lumberton. So he gives them their first defensive commit in this 2024 class. They're now up to 3 commits. And, you know, they're kind of at a point right now where they added Colton Staracki, the big offensive lineman, off of the junior day visit, added Brock Jackson off the junior day visit, and then, of course, Lorena wide receiver Jaden Porter has been committed for a long time. He's kind of been the staple of the class in this early stage. But now I think they've kind of covered both sides initially to start the class. And I know all 3 of these guys have been priority prospects for the Baylor staff ever since they offered, which in most cases was a long time ago. And so to get these 3 in the class, I think is really important. And I know talking to Brock Jackson this week, you know, a big thing he talked about was being, you know, that leader on the defensive side of the ball as far as this recruiting class goes. And I felt like at times in last year's class, you know, they didn't necessarily have a ton of guys who stepped up into that role. I think as things progressed, they really kind of stepped up more in those roles as far as recruiting other recruits. But it was really interesting to hear that from Brock Jackson, who has some pretty good relationships with defensive players in this class. So I think they're at a good point right there in the 2024 class. And then as far as kind of what's next, I mean, the staff continue to put out offers. They put out one today to Ashton Bethel Roman, a wide receiver out of Ridge Point. Ridge Point should sound familiar to Baylor fans because DK Kalu, who signed with Baylor in the 2023 class, played there. And then, of course, a target that they're really recruiting hard, Mason Dossett, who's actually a Baylor legacy, also plays at Ridge Point. So lots of connections there with that Ridge Point program. And so that's something to definitely keep an eye on. And then, of course, outside of that, it's just, you know, more offers going out, more evaluations going out, and just trying to figure out, you know, how are they going to maximize the amount of spots they currently have in this class, which right now is kind of looking like 15 or 16. Now I'm expecting that to grow as time progresses, but right now that's kind of what they're working with. So they got to maximize those spots and make sure they're not wasting it.
Grayson, is especially the small class, have you noticed any type of a pattern starting to develop just in terms of kind of how they're spraying those offers out? I mean, is there a particular side of the ball or particular position groups that they're hitting heavier than others, or has it been pretty spread out and pretty even?
So I would say that I think recently it's been a little bit more spread out, but there are a couple positions where I feel like they've kind of put out the offers that they want out and may not add a ton more offers as time progresses. So kind of what I mean by that is they already have a commit on the offensive line in Colton Staracki, and they really sent out a ton of these offers early and haven't sent out a bunch as we've kind of progressed. And so that kind of tells me that they're really working on the guys that they've already offered. And I think that's pretty apparent when you look at, you know, guys like Lendale offensive lineman Casey Poe. He's been named to keep an eye on. San Marcos offensive lineman Ori Williams. A kid out of Utah, Isaiah Garcia. I talked to him yesterday. He's looking at potentially visiting. He would be another one that I'd put on that radar. And then, of course, Pleasant Grove offensive lineman Caleb Hackelman and Copperas Cove offensive lineman Michael Uni. That's kind of the group that I continue to look at. There's probably a few others, but in general, that position seems like one where, hey, we've sent out as many offers as we kind of need right now. Now let's go work on these relationships and see which ones we can land. And then on the other hand, you know, I think we're seeing more defensive line offers from the staff. That's been apparent. And then, of course, the secondary is a big one. They've really been sending out a lot of offers to safeties especially, and then cornerbacks to an extent as well. So I think those two positions in particular are ones where I think that there's more offers to come, or at least that's where things are trending at the moment.
Okay, you can't answer quarterback for this question, no matter how badly you want to. What position group are you most intrigued by in spring?
Quarterback.
Quarterback, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm actually, obviously, I think the easy answer is quarterback, but, I would say I'm very intrigued by the safety position. And a big reason why is because I think as of this moment, I'm not sure how much they're going to get out of Devin Lemire this spring because obviously he's coming off the shoulder injury he had at the end of last year, which really hampered him in that Air Force game. And so I'm not sure really if he's going to do much this spring at all. And so for that reason, you're going to see a lot of these young guys, whether it's Corey Gordon or Devin Bobby or Alfonso Allen, get a lot of those reps and get a lot of opportunities to prove what they can do, whether that's at field safety, boundary, or star. I just feel like that's an area where they really need, to lock down more guys who can really play at this level and are experienced enough to play at this level. And I think this is a great time for those guys to develop into really good football players, especially while, one of the guys who everyone's projecting, or at least I'm projecting to be the only for sure starter in the secondary, might be out for a little while. So I think I'd go with safety, but there are a few other very intriguing ones for sure. That's just the one that I think immediately comes to my mind outside of quarterback.
So, Grayson, I know that we kind of talked about this a little bit. I don't know if it was ever made public officially or not, but Bryson Jackson coming back for another year, a 7th year. There's been this logjam because of COVID and the bonus years and all of that, but still kind of getting to the end of that. And maybe he wasn't as impactful last year as maybe expected, given he was a 6-year guy. But I saw that because he was on the spring game graphic that they put out. They had him there front and center. So was that officially announced? And I guess you can go ahead and assume that it is official now. And what are your thoughts on Bryson Jackson coming back for yet another year?
Right. So I think it might be, and I know it was different with TJ Franklin as we kind of got an announcement, but we didn't really get an announcement on Gabe Hall and then didn't really get an announcement on Bryson Jackson, even though we've kind of mentioned that those seemed very likely to happen as time progressed as we're about to enter the spring. So yeah, so my thoughts on Bryson Jackson are, I think he was a little bit underutilized last year. And I think a big part of it, honestly, was the fact that Baylor kind of trailed in more games than I think was anticipated. Baylor didn't really force a ton of, 3rd and long situations. And my view on Bryson Jackson is that he's kind of ideal in those situations where you're up, you have a lead, you're forcing the other team to throw the football, or in situations where it's 3rd and long. That's where he becomes his best in my eyes, especially as a pass rusher and a guy who can drop into coverage and just really a versatile player. But those are the situations that I think he's best built for. And Baylor didn't have many of those last year. And so I think that really hampered his production. I think with Matthew Pallage coming in, I think they're going to use him a little bit more creatively because honestly, coming into the year, he was one of those guys that I really felt like could surprise people and potentially be the leading sacker on the entire team last year. And I think going into next year, I think there's a role and a possibility for him to increase his production, play a bigger role, and obviously continue to provide that leadership, which I think is the single biggest important reason for him to come back is that leadership and what he can bring to that locker room that desperately needs it, that's really young and needs more veteran leadership. Having a guy like him stay and potentially come back and really build on his leadership qualities, I think is really key for this football team, and I think it can become contagious, and it's something that Dave Aranda and the staff really need.
All right, so Matthew Pallage, Christian Campbell, A.J. Stewart, Tyler Hancock, the new part of the staff.
Christian Robinson,
Christian Campbell. Christian Robinson. How and what have you heard, at least early on? I know some of them got there right up against the deadline of signing day, whatever, but on the road, are you getting feedback on them from any of the prospects on what their styles might be or who is the one having an impact?
Right. So I think I'm going to speak more towards the guys who I've heard most about. I haven't gotten to hear much about Tyler Hancock as far as the special teams go. I know the current recruits that they got in, like Palmer Williams and Jack Stone, they weren't recruited by him. But I'm sure he's going to have a big impact on them, and I think he was a very nice hire for the staff just to really focus on that special teams area. Now, as far as the other guys go, A.J. Stewart doing a great job as far as, in my eyes, identifying elite talent and really, going out and building those relationships and really just staying connected with the guys that he was recruiting at Oregon State. We've seen that a little bit. I also have heard just good things as far as his relationship building characteristics with these recruits. They have a good relationship with them. And a lot of times you don't always hear that. And I think with AJ, it's great to hear that, he does build good relationships with some of the recruits. And I think it's really rubbing off well on the current running backs and, of course, the running backs they're recruiting. Now, as far as the other two go, Christian Robinson, I think, is going to be a dynamic recruiter. I think he was brought in to be a dynamic recruiter. And he's a guy who everyone I've talked to, he's a guy that they really like. And speaking on that, they're, in my eyes, the best will linebacker prospect in the state, Anthony Smith, out of Jasper. He's been a guy that's been recruited by Baylor for a really long time, and he was recruited by Ron Roberts. And he mentioned that Christian Robinson was recruiting him at Auburn, and that his relationship, the moment Christian Robinson got to Baylor, was better than his relationship with Ron Roberts, and that they were really tight because of their, brief connection at Auburn. And then, of course, him coming to Baylor, they've been able to build on that really quickly. So, again, I think another big, potential upgrade there on the recruiting front. And then Matthew Pallage, I think for him, he's recruiting really well, and I think you're going to see big improvements there at the safety position and just how they're viewing that position and the defense as a whole. I think his initial focus coming in was probably more about scheme and trying to figure out, what guys are going to play what position on the current roster. He has recruited quite a bit, and I've heard his name some, but I don't think I've heard it to the level that we're going to hear it because a lot of these recruits really like him. But I think it's a situation where he's having to, kind of do a bunch of things all at once. So I think as time progresses, we'll probably hear his name even more on the recruiting trail because of the guys he has talked to. I've heard rave reviews from all of them about him recruiting them at Oregon or him having a great personality or them building a great relationship. So far, I would say A+ on the recruiting trail. All these guys are doing a great job, and they're already building connections so early into their time at Baylor.
I do remember when T.J. Franklin had the graphic or whatever. And then I remember one time making a comment about Bryson Jackson. Craig, I think you said he hasn't made that decision yet. But if he's on the front page of their graphic for the spring game, then obviously...
No, I didn't say he didn't make a decision. I just said they haven't made his decision official.
Yeah.
So if
or
he made
Hall,
it,
but there's no other options now unless you worry about the transfer portal, and that can't happen until after basically spring drills on May 1st. And so that's good news that they got some of those guys coming back who have been around quite a bit. Grayson, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Grayson Gruenhafer, Sikkim365.com. Recruiting coordinator and analyst. He puts up it's pretty amazing. If you look at the Sikkim365.com premium section, there are, offer goes out. I mean, it's constant. And then on top of that, co-host with the Bearcast with Craig on Tuesdays, that goes out. And then he also does quite a bit when it comes to his own opinions and stories about what might be happening with recruits and prospects around the state and also the country. Richard Carr Motors, your Baylor Bear Hotline sponsor of segments about Baylor athletics. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco. I will pass it on my way home, and I'm debating whether not to stop. I bought a new bottle of whiskey last week. Maybe I should hold off for a while. Maybe I could get some variety, or maybe I could go get some craft beer, because when it comes to locally sourced bourbons and the variety of craft beers, no better place in Waco to get those than Riverbend Liquor and Wine at Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, behind the bank. Also, maybe you're sitting around this weekend and, you don't, you're locked into watching games and you don't want to get out of the house. You can hit up DoorDash, and they'll bring it to your house from Riverbend Liquor and Wine, available on DoorDash. And if you go and you're in a hurry, go to the drive-thru window. Believe me, they'll find it faster than you will walking around the store. They are just fantastic. Their customer service, their selection, and all. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, also available on DoorDash.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Travis Brown from the Bryan College Station Eagle will join us, covers A&M on that 12th Man Plus Fund, the NIL. He'll join us today at 4:30 on that, and we might even get a little bit into the men's basketball team with that win against Arkansas, as we mentioned yesterday, 11-2, excuse me, in conference play. But, all right, I know there's things that you can't do now that you could do even 2 years ago or 10 years ago or when I was a kid. But yesterday, Paul sent me a text. We both are... We fight over who loves Tiger Woods and him being involved, and we have to tell this story. We're in Atlanta, Georgia, 2000, whenever it was. Tiger had been out again, and I don't even know what it was this time. But he came back, and he was at Bay Hill. They were at Bay Hill, and he hadn't won in a while, and we're covering Baylor, and they're in the Elite Eight, and it's been a fun. They had just won, and maybe Xavier, whoever it was, I don't know, and Tiger was playing and won the tournament, and we're both And we're at the hotel room, and it was awkward. Us jumping around like two idiots.
Yeah.
And excited as we could be. We love the guy. Love him. I know Tiger is absolutely not perfect, and neither am I, and neither is most anyone. But we love him. We love him when he's playing. If he misses a cut at the Genesis, okay. So yesterday, Paul sent a text to Craig and me with this picture of Tiger handing, and I thought it was like a roll of cash, or maybe, I don't know what it was. It's a tampon. And it was because on number 9, Tiger, who's drove the ball great this week, had outdriven Justin Thomas, and it was a personal joke, a prank between the two. They're incredibly close. I would think Justin Thomas is the closest friend Tiger may have on the tour.
The first person that wasn't named Woods that went to go see him in the hospital,
yes.
I believe. Yeah.
So there's the insert. Then Justin Thomas laughing, and then later on there's a picture, a video of them in the back of the green, and Justin is still like, oh, my God, you did not. Well, that picture went out, and then, of course, you know what happens. And I think I saw the reactions, and maybe I just saw them from who follow me or vice versa, that 99.9% of everybody thought it was funny. Yes, someone was going to be triggered or offended, and that doesn't mean you're wrong. But here's Tiger today after his round, and he might miss the cut, when he was asked about that, what he was giving Justin Thomas, a tampon.
Your joke with JT from 9 yesterday is kind of going viral. Can you kind of just explain your thoughts behind it?
Yeah, it was supposed to be, all fun and games, but obviously it hasn't turned out that way. And if I offended anybody, it was not the case. It was just friends having fun. And as I said, if I offended anybody in any way, shape, or form, I'm sorry. It was not intended to be that way. It was just, we play pranks on one another all the time, and virally, I think this did not come across that way, but between us, it's different.
All right, so Tiger apologized. You could tell the last thing he wanted to do, I think, in that moment was apologize, but he also understood it was a question. He answered the question. Richie Witt, who's a columnist, hell of a writer, had this response to the apology. I'm wondering if those offended by this are similarly disgusted by every single golf course offering red, shorter tee boxes for women. Now, you might be offended by that response, but, aren't there things we can still do that are just, you can laugh at them and enjoy them? Should I be offended? No. But if you are, that's your life.
Here's the deal. Tiger clearly made a very concerted effort to keep that joke between him and Justin Thomas. Now, where Tiger erred is there's not a step he can take on a golf course where there's not a camera pointing at him. So, and people just going and going and going. And then, obviously, when he walks up and does that, and then Justin Thomas starts laughing, people are going to wonder about it. But it was a joke between the two of them. I hate to break it to you, ladies, but guys do stuff like that all the time. As different and as things are now, and hopefully improving in relations between the genders, that stuff's never going to stop. It's not a big deal. It's not about you. That's the other thing. It's not about you. It was just about Tiger and Justin Thomas. And look, if you didn't prefer Tiger Woods' particular brand of comedy, don't buy the ticket to his stand-up tour. Okay? Don't worry about it. You're just stressing yourself out over things that don't matter. And, Tiger had to apologize for it, and it's a headache he didn't need. And I don't even think he should have been like, yeah, it was a joke. I'm sorry. Like, he said too many sentences. You just should have been like, yes, it was a joke between me and Justin Thomas. I should have known that people would have seen it. It's just kind of our thing. Nothing to do with anything. If your feelings were hurt, sorry. I didn't think that out in advance. That's all he needed to say.
Christine Brennan, national columnist, mentioned that, well, where did he get it? Does that even matter? It could have been a convenience store. It could have been a grocery store. It could have been, did he steal it off of somebody? Did he go in the women's locker room and sneak in there and take it? We just go deep into this. We probably gave it too much time, but I had to. I thought it was funny as hell. And I don't care if you don't think it was funny, Zell. I do. Paul sent it to us. I laughed my ass off on the tampon story and Justin Thomas. All right, now when we come back, he covers Texas A&M. Travis Brown from the Bryan College Station Eagle on the NIL fund with the 12th Man Foundation, what it means, what it does, what's been the reaction, and this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco. And right now they're having the President's Day event, the sales event. In fact, President's Day coming up on Monday. You can get a 2022 Ram 1500 Quad Cab, 0% for 72 months, or Ram 1500 Crew Cab with 1.9% APR financing for 72 months on most trim levels, Lone Stars and Laramies. Top of the line Longhorn and Longhorn Limiteds. Or get a Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, values of $8,250 plus an extra $500 for first responders. So hurry in while supplies last. President's Day sale going on in the month of February at Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Also, that same event, 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with totals up to $2,000 and 1.9% financing for 72 months on second and third row options. 1.9% financing for 72 months plus rebates on the 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport. In fact, that one has up to $3,500 in total values and plus an extra $500 first responders. Ted Teague, the general manager. AJ's who I deal with, an incredibly good salesperson who sold me on what I was looking for, and he was very patient with me, and that takes a lot. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
What are you waiting for? Next year's New Year's resolution to lose weight, get fit, start working out? 3, 2, 1, go to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. If you really want to get in shape, get rid of weight or inches, you have to make a commitment to work out. End the excuses of not enough time, you're too tired or too busy. There's a special place that will change your life at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. And they have a commitment to you too. With personal trainers Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bosch. State-of-the-art Cybex equipment, new weights and spin bikes, clean and spacious locker rooms, each with a whirlpool and sauna, and a staff that will know your name when you walk through the front door. Elite tennis facilities and a great tennis pro in Britt Coleman. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a place you can call home, a place you can work out on your own or with 40-plus group exercise classes. It's time for you to get in shape, lose inches, get fit at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
Hi, Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Here we go, 365 Sports. We're heading into the middle part of this 4 o'clock hour. We will hear from Kendall Couch, Sikkim365.com basketball analyst, Baylor-Kansas tomorrow afternoon in Lawrence at just after 5 o'clock. We're now joined by Travis Brown, the Bryan College Station Eagle. At the Eagle on Twitter is what the newspaper is, at Travis_L_Brown. Travis Brown joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Travis, thanks very much. So when the latest NIL, that 12th man plus NIL came out, I mean, I think a lot of people were like, wait a minute, can that happen? Can you kind of give us an idea of how they've been able to maneuver and what this is compared to anything else?
Sure. I think as soon as it came out, my reaction was just like anyone's, like, wait a second, this smells a little funny. But in reality, it is A&M kind of putting their toes right on the line of what is legal. And I've talked to several attorneys and people not affiliated with A&M, and they said, yeah, like this is new, this is different. People aren't really doing this, but legally this falls under the right guidelines, and that's because the 12th Man Foundation, which is the main booster organization for Texas A&M, is legally independent from the athletic department as a 501c3 charity. And so this 12th Man Plus fund will operate within the 12th Man Foundation, which is, like I said, a 501c3, and will work in tandem and coordination with the athletic department as far as letting them know compliance issues and things like that. But from everyone that I've talked to, from a legal perspective, because the 12th Man Foundation is a separate 501c3 from the athletic department, it's above board for now. As we've seen with these collectives, with NIL, with how everything is going, it is a whole new territory. There is plenty of collectives that aren't in any way associated with a school's 501c3 booster club organization that are operating as their own 501c3s, and they've had to, file their tax information with the IRS, and the IRS is approving them. So the initial test of all of these has been, okay, they're good with it. But there is some a bill that's been filed in the U.S. Senate by two senators, actually bipartisan, that is trying to eliminate the ability to get a tax deduction from donations to 501c3s that their main mission is providing money to college recruits through name, image, and likeness. So it's a really new gray area, but by the way that the laws are written now, everyone I've talked to has said, yeah, this works.
I would be shocked if that bill ever saw the light of day, just because of how even if it's bipartisan now, the way that things get done. But Travis, this also is, I mean, at least the 12th Man Foundation is kind of pulling back the veil. I mean, Florida has a law essentially allowing this exact thing anyway. So the 12th Man Foundation is just getting right up onto that border. So when it comes down to it, don't they have the argument of, like, what's the difference?
Yeah, and honestly, and I kind of agree with this point too, with some of the lawyers I've been talking to, that the 12th Man Foundation for better or for worse, it's reputable. It's been around for 73 years. They've worked transparently for 73 years. It's not some fly-by-night collective that just popped up that's run by who knows who, and you're not going to get any kind of rashada issues like you see down in Florida. Everything is going to be done with the legal representation and everything that supports the 12th Man Foundation. And it has a charitable mission beyond just supplying money to recruits. It supports the athletic department, which has been a tried and true definition of something that is a charitable organization for almost a decade now in the United States. So as long as the money that they're producing and giving to college recruits doesn't supersede the money that they're bringing in to support the athletic department, they should be above board because their mission is supporting the athletic department and Texas A&M University and the student athletes. And it's not that they're just a factory for pumping out money towards the college recruits. But the interesting caveat here, the only other organization program that has something similar to this is Arkansas. Arkansas has a fund for NIL that is somewhat tied into their main booster organization. But the difference is they pay athletes to go work for charitable organizations around the state. That's their quid pro quo for the name, image, and likeness. At Texas A&M, it's just going to be marketing for the 12th Man Foundation. So when you kind of ask, okay, well, here's something weird. You have people who are paying money into a nonprofit that they're getting tax write-offs for, but the money is going to student athletes that they're getting taxed. Well, that would be the same thing as if a nonprofit paid a marketing organization to market for them to help fundraise, and that happens all the time. So it's kind of another little, I don't want to say loophole, but it is where it falls into the realm of legality for now.
Well, there's no question, Travis, that A&M is doing everything they can to try, and they have been ahead of the curve. It hasn't always worked because we know what happened last year, but my God, you got to give them something for trying, right? They're trying to scratch every little possible itch there is to see if it works. How much patience is there going to be, and obviously coming off of last year, that something better click in a hurry?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that after, especially with the football season they had last year, everybody's wanting to see a drastic turnaround and see what kind of the majority of this number one class they had 2 years ago, how they can kind of gel together and move with a season under their belt. And then you bring in Bobby Petrino and what he can do on offense. I think that this is going to be a very pivotal season for the future of the A&M football program. People want results, and they're going to want them quick. The interesting part about all that is I'm curious to see what personality commonalities or differences happen between Petrino and Jimbo Fisher, who are both very strong personalities who have their thoughts about how offense is going to be run. And the first time, Jimbo Fisher will be handing over the keys to the car with the offense. So going to be interesting to see or figure out what we can hear about what's happening in those meeting rooms and how those personalities work together.
How many drives in a row where they don't score before Jimbo kind of loses his patience?
Man, I'm the first thing I want to see is what does the stack of papers he has in his hand on the sideline look like? Does he still have his same notebook and flip book and flip card and all the above in his hand, or is he going to slim that down a little bit? Because I think that'll be a first indication of how this is going to rock and roll from the get-go.
So they had, in the last decade since they went to the SEC, even though there's been seasons that have been up and down, they had obviously the Johnny Manziel Heisman Trophy season. They were really good during the COVID year, but not good enough. Now Texas and Oklahoma, we know are a year away from joining the SEC. Does that even push that meter of anxiety, not because of Texas and Oklahoma, but because they've kind of had that advantage up until now next summer?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is something there. I think that the road to maybe an SEC title, the college football playoff, is going to be a little bit more difficult with those teams here, but without necessarily even knowing what the scheduling is going to look like, if there's going to be permanent opponents, who the permanent opponents are going to be. I think that's a little too vague to necessarily wrap your head around if you're a fan of A&M right now. I think with just how bad the season was last year, it's just getting back into that double-digit win category and putting A&M back in contention for maybe a college football playoff, to be in those rankings, and for Tuesday nights to mean something around Aggieland again when you look at some of those college football playoff selection shows and whatnot. I think probably the focus is a little bit more there with that. Now, don't get me wrong, there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of talk about when that first A&M and Texas game will be. Is it going to be back towards Thanksgiving again? Is it going to be earlier in the season? Are they going to be a permanent opponent? That conversation has been had a lot. But when it talks about expectations and where they need to be, I think it has more to do with just not missing out on another bowl game again.
Travis, Jimbo Fisher, though, is running up against that, thing that several Texas coaches found, where it can't be the talent, it's the development of said talent that is going to get them, because most schools would trade recruiting classes with A&M in a heartbeat, and they're still hitting the wall. So how long before, before the buyout is palatable enough for if this continues?
Yeah, that's the $85 million question, right? Like it's going to go down to a little bit north of $50 million, I believe, after this season, which still, $50 million. Yes, I get that probably will be played out in installments for how his contract is spelled out. But when this first conversation started happening last year, I'm a big, international soccer fan. Me and my wife have been tuned into the Welcome to Wrexham documentary where Ryan Reynolds and the other guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia bought the team over in England. I'm like, well, okay, how much does it take to buy a non-league soccer team in England? They bought that for $2.5 million. That's a lot of non-league soccer teams that you could buy over in England for the price that it would pay to buy out Jimbo Fisher. If it's another 5-win season next year, yeah, I think somehow they find that money, but it's still a lot of money, and I still think it would probably be 2 seasons away, barring something cataclysmic, before they try to have the pony up the money. Because what's the return on investment? Just paying $50 million to get a guy go away doesn't ensure you're going to win more games the next season. You have to have just an absolute home run hired lined up to make that money have legs at all. It just seems stupid to throw that money away for not necessarily a sure thing.
Travis, let me ask you this. They lost a lot of players to the portal. Some of them were probably asked to leave. Some of them were forced to leave. And then in some cases, some maybe were disgruntled, disappointed, or unhappy. Was that a cleansing in a way for them, a kind of a necessary thing, despite the fact there still might be some prima donnas left on the roster? Was that kind of a cleansing?
There was 4 players on the team that were true freshmen who seemed to get into repeated trouble last year. 3 of those, I believe, were suspended twice during the season. Those 4 guys transferred out, and you could say that those were guys that were probably not going to have a spot in this team because of their conduct off the field, regardless of if they wanted to come back or not. But I think beyond that, if you're a team that wins 5 games in a season, there's going to be a certain level of that second tier, second string guys that are on the cusp of getting starting minutes that are going to say, listen, I see this guy ahead of me. The coaches like this guy. I don't see, unless that guy gets hurt, I don't see necessarily my path to a lot of minutes, a lot of playing time. I'm getting out of here. And so when you look across the board, yeah, A&M lost a ton of players, but it was mostly all of their second and some of their third string that left. They didn't really lose very many starters beyond a couple of the guys that had gotten in trouble during the season. And so I think maybe not to the extent that you'll see from A&M that was in the mid-20s transferring out. But if you look across the SEC, no one really had less than about 12 players transfer out, which is about the second string of one side of the team. I think that's just the transfer portal era that we live in right now, that you're going to see guys, you're going to see that second string from teams try to go elsewhere, especially in the SEC, where players were recruited in thinking that they're the best of the best in the country, and they can go somewhere else and see a lot of playing time. That's just, I think, the nature of the beast that we have right now.
Travis, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. And, again, the latest from him on the 12th Man Plus Fund, pushing that NIL envelope, and A&M, of course, finding yet another way to help with student-athletes, student-athletes on that campus. Appreciate his time for the Bryant Eagle newspaper. Baylor baseball trails 2-0 to Central Michigan in the debut of the Mitch Thompson era. That is just a couple of miles from us. That game, 2-0 Baylor with a couple of runners on. I think it was that bottom four, Paul?
Yeah.
Bottom of the fourth with two runners on.
They had the bases loaded earlier and didn't bring anybody home.
So they're trying to nibble back. I really like Mitch Thompson. Good luck to him, not just today, but also with what he can try to do to Baylor baseball after Steve Rodriguez no longer there and now a part of the University of Texas staff. Texas Tech, I saw in a game we mentioned earlier, won their opening game against Gonzaga earlier today. 5:39. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for the life of your vehicle, for great customer service. And if you're in the market for a new vehicle or a pre-owned vehicle, they're there to help you out with that as well, getting close to closing time. But you can still log on to the website, richardcarr.com, and check out their full-size selection and their various deals, and then head on over to the dealership tomorrow when they open and take care of whatever automotive business you're trying to take care of, because right now Texas-size selection is back. They've got dozens of Sierra trucks on the lot. Qualified buyers can save thousands on 2023 GMC Sierra SLT 1500s or on 2023 GMC Sierra trucks. Check out the regular Sierra trucks. Check out the dealership website or have conversations when you head on over there to get more information on what exactly those deals entail. But limitations do apply. So, again, contact dealer for details. If you're looking for a luxury SUV without a luxury price, well, then head on over and experience the smooth and quiet ride of the 2023 Buick Envision. Qualified buyers can get lease payments with $5,000 down cash or trade at $269 per month or save thousands on a purchase. But I know oftentimes you just hear a lot of numbers, don't know exactly what it means. Again, head on over to the website or contact them, and they can help you parse through all the details, and you will be happy and satisfied with the deals offered when you make your way on over there. They also have a full lot of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock, many of those under $20,000. They're affordable, they're thoroughly inspected, ready to finance for almost any credit rating, and they have quality vehicles over at Richard Carr ready to drive away today. So maybe if you're in the market for a car, you're going to already have conversations. Maybe you've already had conversations. Maybe you go over there. Maybe you check out the website and have those. Or maybe you're not even in the market for a newer pre-owned vehicle at all. You've got the car that you want. You just want to make sure that it keeps running correctly. Well, head on over to their award-winning service department, which will stand by to keep you on the road. Go to richardcarr.com to see their service specials, and you can set an appointment for quick and reliable care for your vehicle. For 23 years in Central Texas, Richard Carr has built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Got new cars, pre-owned cars and trucks, and an incredible service department run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed, smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. And a long business meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Back here on 365 Sports. Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. Paul Catalina will join us here momentarily. So we're in a position now where the NFL's in the offseason. College football is basically in the offseason. There's a lot about to happen. So what do you rely on now to scratch your itch when it comes to sports? What is it? Is it college basketball? Is it men's basketball? What is it? Baseball, of course, have started spring training. NBA, still 20-something games left in the regular season. What is it for you that scratches your itch, if it's not as far as the 2 sports, college football and the NFL, playing games? That could be on the chat room. We'd appreciate your feedback on the chat room, and also the text line at 254-339-1122. Working Man immediately said baseball. For me, I don't have just one thing that scratches my itch. Yes, yesterday and today was watching Tiger on TV. Tonight, it's probably not going to be anything, but tomorrow will be a plethora of some really good matchups in college basketball to just kind of soak in throughout the day. Not just Baylor-Kansas, but the other games too.
Yeah, it's not one thing for me. It just, I really enjoy the NBA playoffs when they start. I enjoy baseball, all 162 games in the playoffs. I mean, depending on how well the Red Sox are doing, if they play as badly as they did last year, then I just turn them on for an inning and then I watch them do something stupid and then I got to take a walk. So,
Craig, there's one for you because you just wrote this story, King Williams 3D, the XFL and the USFL.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting. The XFL launches tomorrow. I like college basketball. I like basketball in general, but I like it when it gets down to the games that matter the most. That's why I think the Big 12 has been really fun, is not from a homer perspective, but just that every game does matter so much in the standings and whatnot that it makes it fun to just check out in general. But I'm not the biggest basketball fan in the world. It's not like it's top 3, but it's not my go-to, but it will be, as we roll now into the rest of college, I'll be paying much closer attention. And then with the NBA, like once they get into the playoffs, I'll start to really, dive further into that. And a lot of it just depends on what the teams I root for are doing.
Sure.
I mean, I don't just, just broadly consume it the way that I used to. So, yeah, if the Mavericks are doing, really well, I mean, if they're in it and they should be, then, I'll be watching them really closely. But, yeah, I mean, there are other football options out there. Rangers obviously had a big offseason, so I'm curious to see what they do coming up here this next season, although already having some injury issues potentially that
oh god, yeah, I saw
would
that.
just kind of derail the whole bubble of hope in the offseason. Not completely, but there's just annoyances there. But anyways, I mean, yeah, with the XFL starting tomorrow, that'll be interesting to see how they relaunch this bad boy. The Rock's in charge now, along with his ex-wife Danny Garcia and a plethora of other folks. It's no longer Vince McMahon's project. He failed at it twice. He failed at it the first year back in the early 2000s when they just lost tons and tons and tons of money and it didn't catch on. And then they tried to relaunch it a couple of years ago, and COVID just smashed it right away, basically out of the gates. As soon as they got their season started, COVID hit shortly thereafter, and they're like, all right, throw our hands up and we're done. And it was thought to be a dead property, and then here comes The Rock and his people. So they've tried to, from all indications, make this as, normal and as good of a league as it can possibly be. And I know the standards or the expectations aren't super high, so I am curious to just kind of see how it goes. They've got a great TV deal. I mean, they're on major networks. The star power is kind of still what it always is in leagues like this. There's some familiar names. There's not like superstars, though. And so, yeah, I'll be very curious to see the numbers that come out of the XFL this weekend. They're going to have games on Saturday and Sunday. They have some primetime games as well. So, yeah, we'll see how they do. But I'll definitely give it a look-see and just, see how it is and see how it's different versus what we saw the last couple of times around. But it's just so hard for alternative football leagues to catch on in this country and actually thrive. And so if The Rock and all his star power and his money power and all of that comes with that, the fact that, the NFL's kind of worked with them on some things. They're not a minor league, but they've done some work together. I think, maybe with Vince McMahon out of the picture, it'll be respected a little bit differently and not viewed as so much of like the wrestling circus side project like it was, but we'll see. But yeah, I definitely hope that a lot of people check it out because it's a great opportunity for a lot of other guys that would otherwise not be playing football anymore.
Yeah.
So.
If you think about the origins of the original XFL, about 5 years before the concussion thing started happening in the NFL, which means that it was happening. There was scuttlebutt about it. And there was research starting to come up before the candle really got lit. Vince McMahon was trying to sell a league of like, the NFL are sissies. We're not going to have a bubble on punt returns, and there's not going to be this. And the television product that he thought he was going to be bringing was not good. It's kind of funny how Lorne Michaels had his say in, we're not going to push back the start of my show for, which is Saturday Night Live, for a football league that's getting a 1-share rating. Like that really hurt it. They fired their play-by-play guy, Matt Vasgersian, after like the second week or whatever it was. And so there's all these things that, because Vince is such a volatile person, it just was not going to work for him. But The Rock, I mean, he's steady Eddie. He's, franchise Viagra, as they call him when it comes into things. And, we'll see. I mean, he didn't, he made a DC Comics movie and then they changed the whole way they did the whole thing. So maybe the bloom's off the rose for him a little bit, but he's still The Rock. He's still really smart and successful. And I think it'll be better.
There's a thirst for football in this country that is overwhelming. And that's why if you look at the NFL, they have 28 or 29 of the top 30 shows and all-time. Craig brought that up on Tuesday. College football's, I don't know if it's ever been more popular. It's so different now with so many different parts of it, levels of it, with the NIL transfer portal and more, billion-dollar contracts and all of that. I don't know if any alternative league will ever hit. The USFL was able to have a grab it for about a season because of the names they had. But their names were guys that people could relate to, from Steve Young, Jim Kelly, Calvin Bryant, Herschel Walker. I mean, that was the star power. And then, of course, they ruined that as well. But to me, will be interesting if any alternative football league could ever truly get a grip. And if they do succeed, the XFL or whoever, that will be interesting. I just don't see it happening. You mentioned the Rangers with the Jake DeGrom story, where they, at least for right now, they're just kind of delaying that because he's been fragile. Great pitcher, incredible pitcher, dominant pitcher, but he has been fragile, and he's a part of the Rangers offseason. I would love to be able to go home, not just the first week of the regular season, and turn on my television when I get off the show and get home and actually watch them consistently, because there is at least something there that shows to me that they've gone up another level. And I haven't done that maybe in 5 years.
Well, also, good luck in doing.
What were you looking at me like?
Not
that?
5 years.
I mean, of what they've been on. When was the last time they were any good?
Yeah, it's been about 5 years.
It's been about 5 years. I'll
you
have
want to
them
look
on.
Still the
forward
team
to-
you root for.
What I'm
is
saying,
what I'm saying.
no,
You wanna
it
look
is
forward
my
to
favorite
it.
team. The Spurs are my favorite team, but I can't watch them very often.
But you want to look forward to it.
I want to be able to say not just the opening week of the season, the afternoon game on opening day, wherever it is, if they're home or away. I just would love to see, a little. Simeon and Seager last year, it made me at least watch them a little bit. And of course, they flamed out pretty early. Those two guys ended up with 2 pretty good years. I just wish I could kind of want to watch them after the opening week or even month of the regular season. And it's been a while.
Well, the Mets blogs are already like, here we go with Jacob DeGrom and the injury, and they're rooting for him to fail, clearly, because, why would they want him to go and thrive elsewhere? So they want to be proven that, he's just injury-riddled and he's lost it and he's not as good as he used to be. And we dodged a bullet there. So somebody will be right in that to some degree, and it'll either be, Mets fans or Rangers fans. But, he's got some side tightness, whatever that, entails. And so, we'll have to just see what happens with that. But that is one of the concerns when you brought him on, was just, age and injuries and things like that. Nobody's denying the level of talent that the guy has. If that was the question, that there wouldn't be any balking whatsoever at the Rangers acquiring him. But, it's just how much of that talent are we actually going to see, start in and start out, and how many starts are we going to see from him and all that stuff. So, it does charge up the interest level, though, a little bit heading into this season. So, we'll see. But, there's a lot going on right now. And even still, college football at this point, they're not playing any games. But here's this realignment story that just won't go away no matter what. And here's new NIL stuff. No matter what, there's always something, it seems like, nowadays, as they do their best, either intentionally or not, to replicate the year-round calendar that the NFL has been able to establish now for the last few years. So, it's not going to slow down, although Saturdays are going to lighten up a little bit. But, hey, if you're interested in the XFL, or here in a couple of months, the USFL, when that starts back, then you're still going to have some football around this spring. But, the USFL, just for the Baylor listeners out there, Riley Tejada is on a team. He's playing for Houston. You've got Abram Smith, who was actually the number 1 overall pick. Now, granted, they do their draft differently, like round 1 skill guys. Right. So he was the number 1 overall pick, but it was going to be a skill guy. But it was Abram Smith from Baylor. He plays for D.C. Jordan Williams, linebacker, plays for San Antonio. You also have Jalen McClendon, who NC State fans also saw more of than Baylor fans, but he's still sticking around. He's with Vegas. And then you have, who did I say, Jordan Williams, Abram Smith, Jalen McClendon, Josh Gordon, Riley Tejada as well, but Josh Gordon still hanging around. Although at this point, this is the tail end. He's spent over a decade in the NFL, including suspensions, so he's not getting any younger. But even still, as I wrote in an article, he's still probably the most talented dude in the entire league. Like even, nearing 40, Josh Gordon is still probably faster, stronger, more athletic than 90% of the 25-year-olds in the XFL. He's just that much of a freak show. But, you kind of know his story at this point. He did get a Super Bowl ring, though, along the way. He was suspended, but the Patriots still gave him a ring, so he got that. But, there's a mix of old and new, and, good for those guys to have the opportunity, and hopefully it works out well, because if it were to, then that becomes another side part to this industry that – blossoms and creates a lot of good things for a lot of different people across the whole landscape.
Part of the problem that the NFL has, though, of like a lot of these guys that you keep kind of bouncing around, they don't get any better than they are, even though you think you are, and it's the structure's fault. It's not necessarily their fault. So say you're a guy who's a second-string quarterback, a 4th or 5th-round pick who's got potential, right? And you're, let's say something like Jimmy Clausen.
Okay.
You know, so think about Jimmy Clausen, who's really
so random.
Yeah, but he's like really good at Notre Dame, and he's got all the tools. You know, he can throw the ball all over the yard, but ultimately he's not going to get that many reps in practice because the starter on that team is going to get all the reps, and he's going to get 10 on a good day. And his time to shine is in training camp, but once September 1st rolls around, then he's back to 10 reps. Well, now the Jimmy Clausens of the world can maybe spend a season or two in the XFL and go, oh, okay, he's got reps. He's actually getting better playing in games. He can be viable now.
You think the reps in those games are more valuable than the reps, even if they're just practices of an NFL team?
Because it can be more. I think it's the volume. I think it's the volume because he's, and he can.
Can you do that if you're on an NFL roster? You can't go play for another league.
You might have to, forego that for a couple years.
Okay.
But to me, if you're a perennial third-string quarterback who teams seem to like,
no way.
Now,
I get the volume.
If you want to play,
makes sense. No way I would ever, because otherwise that means that you have to be cut or you have to ask to be let go. And if I'm an NFL team, excuse me, where are you going?
Well, exactly. And therein lies the problem because the NFL doesn't have a developmental league. So because they don't have a developmental league,
it's called college football.
Well, I know.
College football's got better players than any of these minor leagues have. I mean, overall, more star power for sure.
Yeah,
way more star power.
You're kind of caught if you're a backup.
Exactly.
Or the
you wish if you were I don't know why you thought of Jimmy Clausen. That's just the most random mention because I'm just picturing his rival's profile and his spiky blonde hair like it was yesterday. But that you wish that if a guy like that who's the third stringer on the Carolina Panthers or whatever, if he was needing some playing time, he could go down to the Arlington Roughnecks and get 10 games under his belt and play against some level of competition rather than just sit back. Then again, being a backup in the NFL is the greatest job in the entire world. It's very lucrative, and so long as the guy doesn't get hurt, then you're pretty much just helping prepare, and then if a guy does get hurt, then hey, there's your opportunity. Go have at it. But yeah, there's that dilemma with this is how much better do guys get? How much of a showcase is it really for them, and how much of an opportunity is it really because you're not signing to the XFL to stay in the XFL for the next 5 to 10 years. No. You're signing to the XFL hoping that you play well enough after just a few games that some NFL team comes calling. So does it turn into that? I think in years past, it's been like a scattering of like that guy signs the deal, that guy signed to a practice squad, but there's no like name that has come out of it. Even like the biggest name in the first incarnation of He Hate Me had a bucket of Gatorade in the NFL and didn't matter a whole lot in the grand scheme of things.
Kurt Warner, may he be the best graduate.
He's the exception for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the MVP of the first iteration of the XFL was Tommy Maddox, and that allowed him to get back in the NFL and play for a few more years and start here and there. And that's what I'm talking about. But, there are also there's going to be a lot of fans that when your second or third string guy has to play because of injuries, you're going to be it's not always going to be Brock Purdy, right?
No.
And you're going to be like, why does he suck? And you're like, well, he took 2 snaps a week, and then now he's going to start.
We've had NFL quarterbacks, backups on. I mean, once the season begins, man, it's shutdown city. A couple of comments on these alternate football leagues from King William 3D. XFL 2 was as legit could be in terms of operations, just couldn't see the pandemic coming.
Yeah, they got crushed by that, and then Vince folded it shortly thereafter. I mean, that was what was so strange about it is they had to make a decision to shut down at least playing because of the timing of it. Everybody did all across the world. So that was a foregone conclusion that they would have to do that. But he just shut it down and then shut it down and just said, oh, no, it's over entirely. And everybody's like, wait, what? All the players. I mean, everybody involved. I mean, that's Oliver Luck had the lawsuit over that, because he had been named to I don't know if he was the commissioner, but he was was he?
President or whatever?
Yeah, he was whatever, the high profile leader of the league. And, him and Vincent got into their lawsuit situation over that. So, yeah, I mean, I think that they tried to do it right the second time around, and it just was really bad timing. I mean, who could have foreseen something like that? So we'll see with this one. I mean, The Rock, I will say this, though, about the XFL, just kind of the ghost of the XFL, and maybe it's a bad luck trademark or something, has The Rock's popularity been lower, like, in the last 10 years than it is right now?
It's not.
Because of Black Adam, and it's just like, I guess because he was so popular, and so many of his movies, as popcorn summer movie as they might have been, remake, whatever, just kept hitting no matter what, that it became like he had 10 movies out, it seemed like, all at once, and it got to be overkill, right, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just got to be too much Rock. And now you're at a point where then he drops the Black Adam movie, and he does it timing-wise at the worst possible time because nobody else wants to see any more superhero movies, or if it's not Marvel or Batman, they don't want to see it. And so he's kind of like the most unpopular that he's been. Not that he's unpopular, but he's not as hot as he was like a year ago.
Is it because he's too available?
Well, and he's also...
It's just too much at one point in time, I think.
He's also exerting his... And he's got the Young Rock show.
Yeah, he's got
you know, which is... I mean, I've watched it. I mean, you got to have an ego to do a show like that. It's fine, but it's
fine.
It's fine. It's just one of those things that you got to have an ego to do that. And his ego, I mean, justifiably big. But one of the things that happened in all that was, so the Black Adam movie comes out, and he knew it wasn't very good. He knew it wasn't. And how I know he knew it wasn't very good is, okay, I'm going to put Superman in this movie for 10 seconds at the very end so that now I've got some buzz. And then they said, yeah, we don't like that you did that. We're going to change everything that we're doing all across the board.
And that Superman's not even Superman anymore.
Exactly.
That was his last appearance as Superman. That's how much that movie just flopped in general. But yeah, I mean, so it's just the XFL, here it comes. And when it happened, The Rock's taking it over. Like, wow, if anybody could take this. But yet here they get ready to go, and he's the least popular he's been in a decade. But he's still more popular than 99% of people on Earth. So I'm sure, that won't be their issue. Their issue will just be the fact that it's the XFL for a third time, and will people latch onto it or not, just like with every other league that's out there. And so far, it's mostly tilted towards these things not lasting very long. But I forget our man's name that you just mentioned there, said on the text line, the second incarnation was set up really well. I do think they have everything in place. They're even playing at away sites. It's not like the USFL where everybody was in Birmingham all year long. They've got some name guys, so we'll see. I mean, I don't have hopes that it's going to be a rival in any way, shape, or form to what's going on. It won't be. Nothing ever will be. But it is some football coming up this weekend. And we'll see how it goes, so good luck to those guys involved.
I saw where Cindy Machado made a comment asking about anything with the Pac-12. Cindy comes on here every day and asks that in the chat room. I actually reached out to the media relations department at San